do for social distance. We had like one kid with a mask, and we took a few chairs out. I mean,
we had one kid with a mask too. It was awkward.
That's so funny.
We like with this whole thing. It's just kind of like, so guys are like, we should probably social distance. I'm like, so what does that look like? He's like, well, I don't know. What does the governor say? And I mean, everything's so vague, you know. And so we took out a chair or a row of chairs. And so there was like, because you can only get the disease if there's someone in front of you that has it. Hopefully not beside you. And so,
just like, so you know, we are live, guys. Just want to be, you know, that's what you guys know.
So I mean,
before you start getting in trouble here.
Yeah. So we did that, and it's interesting. You know, we got like Canadian County was owning the going back in, and so it just. I've had a few parents text me and ask me, like, what do you think about things? And I just been telling them, you know, we're opening back up. That doesn't mean you have to come.
Yeah.
That just means, you know, whatever you guys, you know, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. It's one of my favorite verses. Whatever you feel peace about, talk to your doctor. And, you know, and a lot of the parents like, well, one doctor says this and one doctor says that, you know, and so you just have to put it back on the parents. Our philosophy is we're open. We would love for you to be here. We understand if you can't. We've communicated with our leaders. Let us know. Some of our leaders are going to come back in June or whenever we're in phase 3 or whatever's after that. So, you know, it's just with everything else. We've just been talking a lot about it around here, how some things are not a problem to be solved, but attention to be managed. And so this whole thing has just been attention to be managed. And so we're just trying. And we're in like, I mean, I think you have to be wise and know who you're dealing with. We're in Mustang, Oklahoma. Everyone here thinks it's a conspiracy anyways. And so they're like, let's go. I mean, like 3 weeks ago, we had like thousands of people on 152 for a car show. So everyone's just like, let's go. And so I'm sure that plays, you know, I'm not trying to be funny, but I'm sure that plays a little bit of a part into it as well. I mean, you know, and so, but we did that. We had a good service. And I know I think Riley said we had about 75% of what we had last year at this time or so. And so, I mean, I know there's people who are still nervous. My big thing is this: I'm not really scared right now. I've talked to our doctor, and I'm not, you know, I'm much more scared about killing myself with the way I drive than I am getting this. But I don't want to discount the fact that there are people who are scared. And so when it comes to, you know, everything that we're communicating and saying, I'm just trying to be aware and to be cognizant of that. I don't want to alienate anybody who might be nervous or scared, and that's what we're doing. So, yeah, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah. Well, guys, welcome to this episode here. We are just, as you can tell, we're already just diving in, talking about what does it look like to reopen your youth ministry. You know, I've got a lot of people around the nation just kind of asking. I mean, I know a lot of churches are beginning to open up. A lot of lead pastors are beginning to open up. But the big question is, when do you open up? How do you open up youth ministry? When do you open up? How do you open up kids ministry? All that kind of stuff. And so I've got a couple guys here that have already reopened their youth ministry. A couple of them last night, Wednesday night, was their first night. A couple of them, they're 2 weeks into this thing. And so let's just real quick, I know we did it before we went live, guys, but let's just go ahead and jump in real quick. Why don't you guys just say real quick your name and kind of where you're at, and then we'll take it from there. So Bryce, why don't you get us started here?
Yeah, Bryce Hargis, Discovery Church in Yukon. Been there about 6 years. Loving every minute of it. Yep.
It's awesome. Abdiel.
Yep. Abdiel Pagan at Lawton First Assembly in Lawton, Oklahoma. Been here for just a few months. Yep.
Now, am I correct in saying that last night when you opened up was your first night, like in person as the youth pastor?
Yeah.
Come on.
I love it. No. Awesome. That's crazy.
So everything else you were doing for the last few weeks has just been all digital, and last night was your first night.
Yep. It's been all digital, all online. But it felt really good last night to be good. I mean, we were maximizing as much as possible, you know, the social media and streaming and things like that. But man, it felt good to be actually there in person because of that. That was our first time with all the kids. So
yeah, that's awesome. All right, Baron, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Baron Cage over at Trinity Baptist Church over in Yukon. I've been here a little under a year. It was great. It's been great so far. We love it.
And you're coming in from Nashville?
I am. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. Me and my wife both are. We spent a little time up in Tulsa before we moved down here to UConn. Guys doing some incredible things.
That's awesome. Ryan.
My name is Ryan. I'm in Mustang, Oklahoma, and I've been here for 13 years now. And when I came, Riley Webster was in 6th grade, and now he's our associate youth pastor. So
that's right. And I am Riley, and I'm Ryan's associate youth pastor. So I'm at the.
Riley knows where all the kids hide their vapes and stuff because that's what he used to do when he was in.
That's what I used to do, exactly. I know all the secrets.
That's awesome. All right, so let's do this for the guys that have this all figured out. Since you guys are 2 weeks in, Bryce, why don't you, and Barron, you guys opened up last week. So why don't you just tell us, what was the difference between last week and this week, real quick?
Yeah, so we opened up 2 Wednesdays ago, and looking back, it was one of those things that the decision really came from our senior pastor. We had been open as a church then for a week or so already. And it was a very similar thing. If you didn't catch what Ryan said earlier about basically just what they're doing at the bridge is like, our policy is like, hey, we're going to open up. We're going to do our best to follow the restrictions that have been in place. If you want to come because you feel comfortable, awesome. If you don't, that's awesome, because we're still going to stream online. We're not going to make you feel belittled. That's been kind of maybe a slightly big challenge that we've kind of had to overcome or kind of navigate through in this whole process. Is like, there are differing opinions in this whole pandemic, very, very differing opinions. And it's been kind of challenging there just because some people are like, you're absolutely, and part of it is what Ryan Summer said a second ago. It's like, it's geographical too. Cause I think a lot of UConn people, they're not buying into the stay in house at all times. We do have a couple students that are like that, but basically we opened up and just not really knowing what to expect. We did every other row. So we closed down a row, and our pastor let us move into the main auditorium, which seats a lot more than the small auditorium does, where we normally have our youth service. And so we just told that the rules are, when they came in the door, we opened up the door about 15 minutes early before they are able to have a seat. And then once they got in there, we told them, hey, sit 2 seats apart from everybody else. And unless you're in the same household, and try to do your best to social distance. Usually we all come down to the front and have like the whole youth, worship thing. We're like, let's make sure we stay away from that. We didn't do any games. We didn't do any food. We didn't do anything like that. But one of the coolest things was it was just, I could sense that all of our students were really craving just the proximity and the face-to-face. There's just we can utilize media as best we can, but it was still just challenging not seeing people face-to-face. So it was huge for us. We were probably at about the first week we opened up, we were probably at about 70%, 75, somewhere around there. Last night was our second Wednesday back, and we actually dropped off a little bit from that. I don't know if that's normal summer thing or if that's people changing, their minds. There's been some parents, some leaders that have been pretty adamant that like, hey, we're not going to come until at least June. And we're like, all right, that's fine too. So it just is what it is, man. We're just trying to do the best we can with who we have. So it's been going well, though. It's been going well. It's been challenging, but a good, fun challenge, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be interesting to see as far as youth numbers develop. Is are we even gonna be able to see accurate stuff until August? Because of the normal summer attendance drop anyway. When are we even going to see our numbers, an accurate picture of what students are coming? Because we're the same thing as what Bryce said, is that we had about 75% last night. Also, as it was our first night back. Bryce, I'm curious, are you guys streaming your youth service on top of meeting in person?
Yeah. So we knew some people specifically that were in our Zoom calls that were interacting with on YouTube Live, that their parents were not comfortable with them coming for whatever reason, whether they live with a grandparent or whatever. So we made it a decision to like, hey, we're still going to launch basically 7:00 on Wednesday is still youth night. So we launched YouTube Live at 7:00. We had one of our leaders that has a baby who wasn't comfortable coming anyway. So I'm like, hey, just be our online host type thing. So she was our YouTube online host. And then at the end of service, which this was super, listen, we did it, but I'll just be honest with you. It was like, I don't know if it was beneficial, but for those students who weren't able to be here live, we ended up kicking up the Zoom calls for our family groups. We call our small groups family groups. And for our family group time, we had like a leader hold a computer and just chill there while everybody else is kind of in a circle 6 feet apart, and they're just there on their computer like, hey guys, so it's a little bit lame, but it just is what it is. So we tried to do our best to make everybody who wanted to be a part of youth still be a part. So.
That's cool. So, Baron, what about you? Some stuff. What are you seeing as you guys are moving along here?
Yeah, so it's kind of what Bryce said. As we followed the leadership of our senior pastor, we've been doing Sunday services for about 3 weeks now. As soon as we got the green light, we kind of started doing that, and so we opened up on Sunday mornings doing small groups. It's kind of what we do every Sunday, but we launched this Wednesday, our first Wednesday, and it was kind of one of those things. It was an odd season because I'm sure all of us in this group are in the community pushing hard. You're challenging your students to reach your friends. This is the one time in church that you're just kind of opening the doors and you're saying, if you're comfortable, come on. And It's been a unique season, especially when you look at kind of the changes Trinity's gone through. The student ministry here has drastically shifted over the last 9 months. We've seen God do incredible things. And the thing he's writing here is only a God story. And so as we kind of process this summer, the whole intentionality is relationships and rebuilding that foundation, because the momentum we had come March was insane. We were hitting numbers that have never been touched. And then we all know COVID hit and it just took us out. And so when you guys are talking about 75%, like we weren't anywhere near, we were about 50%, maybe even 40% of who we typically have coming. And we had about 75 people here, but we were almost more than where we were this time last year. So it's a really weird, interesting season as you start dissecting. And I think what Bryce says, it has a lot to do with your location and your spot and really what's going on in your church. So for us, it's, man, let's just open the doors and see who comes. And last night we were pleasantly shocked. I mean, it's not where we wanted it to be, but you know what? It's still okay, because we're going to embrace the ones that are here. We're going to shepherd the ones that are here. We're going to disciple and pour into them. And God's going to continue to open the door. And when the community opens up, I think our church is going to get the benefit from it. But like so many of y'all said, it's hard to gauge what's going on, because not only do you have the uncertainty with COVID-19, you've got the sports seasons that are ramping up. Like how many sports are now starting because they've had a 2-month delay? And Memorial Day, which, does anyone know what's going to happen this Sunday? Like, are people coming to church? Are they going to the lake? Are they?
Exactly.
So, I said since the very beginning, the only way that we're really going to be able to tell the effect of COVID-19 and if what we did is successful or not is truly what happens in August and September and October. Mm-hmm. Like the views don't matter at this point. Mm-hmm. Did you build relationships? And we're taking that same motto into the summer of it's all about relationships. And so that's our focus. It went well because that's what we focused on.
It's great. So let's jump back. I know Ryan touched on it a little bit, but Ryan, why don't you unpack that a little bit more? I mean, what were you guys thinking about? What was kind of those decision makers for you guys to say, this is the week, this is when we're opening up? Because, like Bryce is right down the road. He opened up the week before you. Like there's a lot of churches that are still in Oklahoma area that aren't opening up. So what was it for you guys? And maybe take us back into like some of those leadership meetings with your lead pastor or people like that. What was that conversation like for you guys?
We were like, Bryce is having service. We've got to start having service.
You got to keep up with Bryce.
That's pretty much true, right? I mean, I think everybody saw Bryce and said, "Okay, we're behind, man. He's gonna take all our students."
Closer than
I was the only one. We were the only one that did it, to my knowledge, and I literally had a moment of freak out. Like, why? Like, we're the only ones. Is this a bad idea? Like, people are gonna come out of the woodwork, like, shut us down.
I just told our pastor, I'm tired of getting on and doing Instagram live service, and right when we get on, it says Elevation Youth is now live. And you're like, how am I supposed to compete with that?
Why are we even trying with this?
We're doing service. No, we just pretty much followed what the governor said. And our pastor was like, hey, this is when we're going to go back. So we started having service. Man, we had Sunday service 3 weeks ago. And on the little, opening up thing, Governor Stitt just said, I think this was when we could start having nursery and youth stuff. And so that's what we went with. And so we tried to really communicate with our parents through our parent newsletter, through our Facebook, parent group and different things like that. But that was just the main factor, is as soon as we can open up, we're going to open up, because I think Bryce touched on it earlier. It is a weird dynamic because you have probably a lot more people around here are like, let's get back. This whole thing is dumb. One person said, I hope we're open by 4th of July so we can celebrate our freedom, And so, there's all that kind of stuff going on. But then you also have the people who are really, really, really scared about it. And so,
right.
Just not, we're joking around about it with us, and probably shouldn't be, sorry. But with those people, you can't make fun of it. You can't make light of whatever that might be. So our decision was just, the governor said we could do it. and our mayor, all that kind of stuff, because it's crazy. Like down the street in Norman, like it's super locked up. They just canceled Christmas, I think, and so it's like, you just. So for me, I'm just completely submissive to our pastor's authority, and his thing is we're going to open up. If people want to come, we're going to be here. If they don't, then they're not going to be here, and we're just going to present that front, and it seemed to go well. A couple staff meetings ago, my boss, Robbie, asked us all, what's the biggest need that you think our people have right now? And so we really kind of stepped back and looked at, I think the biggest need that our teenagers have right now is they just want to see other people. And then you see, and so I totally agree with what Barry was saying about relationships. We had some kids that were coming up in our parking lot, just parking their cars and like tailgating, staying 6 feet apart, and just hanging out. So we have really, a lot of times in the summer you're kind of coasting. So we've tried to plan some things to kind of get revamped up, and we finally got word on when we're going to youth camp and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it all came down to the governor said we could do it, and our local and city authority said we could do it. And our pastor, was like, because I have some friends who their pastors are still really nervous. We're not going to open up yet. And so I just think it comes down to this whole thing is just you submit to your authority. I love the quote, it's easy to have clarity when you don't have the responsibility to actually make the decision, And so that's what we did. And so we try to take, I printed off right here. I have my, open up and recover safely plan from Governor Stitt. And so we just try to follow it and, do everything that we're supposed to do. And,
all right. So we got a question for you guys. Why don't you guys dive in on this? What were some of the things that you guys did pre-service and post-service, right? Because that's probably the most social distancing issues there. So what were some of those things that you guys put into place before and after service?
We didn't do much. We didn't do much different on our end, essentially. And what you guys found since you guys opened up, and what people are going to find as they open up their youth services in the coming weeks, is you can encourage social distancing all you want, but you can't force the students to social distance. You can really try. And so the thing is you can do stuff to your building to try and encourage it. Take out chairs, move seating around, and that helps. We had kids sitting on each other's laps so they could fit in the same row because we took out rows last night. And so the thing is we didn't change. We still allowed mainly just people could hang out before service and hang out after service. Now in Mustang, we don't really have a culture of our youth group where kids are showing up 3 hours early either, though. The majority of our kids get there 20 minutes before service starts. Yeah. And so that's just the culture that we work into here in Mustang. And so we didn't have to change a ton of our pre and post service stuff just because we don't have kids that show up 3 hours early every week. The majority of our kids get there 20 minutes before service. But we just mainly what we did is our building arrangement. We took out some chairs, rearranged some stuff like that to encourage the social distancing. Like I've already talked to Bryce, and you guys kind of ran into the same problem. Is you can encourage all you want, but it's a little hard. I know Abdiel, you guys put every single chair 6 feet apart, didn't you?
Yeah, we had every single chair just six feet apart, and at first, so you have that kind of moment where you open the doors to like your auditorium and you've got your countdown and everything. That was really the only moment.
Okay, but let's be honest. That not everybody has a student auditorium building like Abdiel has to deal with here. So he's got like an actual building. I mean, the bridge, you guys are pretty set up too, but Abdiel has like a whole lobby with they usually have like food and games and all that kind of stuff set up. So you had to like modify all of that, right, Abdiel?
Right. Yeah. So, you kind of had to push through some awkward moments mentally. But really, I mean, it really wasn't that bad with the chairs, distance in the auditorium, in the lobby beforehand. What we did is we typically would open doors to Wednesday nights about an hour before service starts, but we opened doors later, and so we didn't open doors till 6:30 to give us a little bit of a smaller window of time to hang out, and then we just took out all the chairs, all the tables. We didn't serve food or anything like that, but one thing that we added was we had some of our leaders and student leaders carry around some signs that said just fun ways to kind of, like you guys were saying, encourage distancing. That said, hey, we can love from a distance. make sure you stay one Pastor Abdiel length apart, kind of thing. Instead of a hug, throw up a peace sign, and there was just signs where, like you guys were saying, even though, you can't force it. And even though we had those signs, we still had kids, hugging each other and things like that. It's just kind of like a fun way to, at the least, throw a visually appealing thing to a seemingly kind of boring situation with like nothing happening in the lobby, because we couldn't do any of the games because that just added so many touch points that we had to disinfect and clean up and things like that. So I think the biggest thing is just adding just as much visually appealing, and of course, the music and everything like that, as many visually appealing things as possible. We had this big graffiti sheet that we had some people make for us, and we, threw it on there, and it just kind of added to the vibe of it. But that's really all you can do, unless you're willing to sit there and disinfect all of your games afterwards, and do in every single small nook and cranny and every single chair, and that's something that we didn't want to put our facilities team through, and so we just kind of took it all out and just added as much visually appealing kind of elements to the pre-service, and it was all out there post-service too. A lot of our kids just kind of bounced because there was nothing to do afterwards. So a handful kind of hung out, but for the most part, the distancing wasn't it blew away my expectations that I had. We going into it, we thought kids were gonna move around chairs and things like that, but they didn't. They actually responded pretty well to it. I think we underestimated how respectful and mindful the kids were actually gonna be to some of the guidelines. I think that's what we tend to do anyway. It's the stereotype, oh, they're just teenagers, they're gonna do whatever they want. So we could have believed in them a little bit more to actually follow through with the guidelines and things like that. We actually did a game, kind of like a never have I ever quarantine version, where if like they did the prompts, I think one of them was never have I ever during quarantine finished a whole season of a show, then if they did, they would stand up. And so we had like 8 prompts or whatever, and so that was kind of like a game element that we added to the service, to kind of make it a little more fun, like how we would normally do games anyway, during, or most of us would during the service. And so and I didn't think of doing that till like 30 minutes before service, and so I had to like let the sound people know and everything, like, hey, we're gonna throw this curveball in there. But it was just a little fun, kind of element, fun way to keep it fun, keep it lighthearted. Hey, we get that this isn't ideal right now. None of you guys are sitting next to your friends. You're all 6 feet apart, but let's just have some fun anyway. So I don't know. Those are some things that we did.
It's good.
Did any of you guys do small groups? Choose to do small groups? We chose not to do small groups. Bryce, you guys did?
Yeah, we did, only because right now the way our church is laid out, and this might not work for every church obviously, but what we did is after service, we normally have family group times, like small group times, and we had the entire building right now. So there's no adult class small groups meeting. There's no kids ministry right now, or nursery for that matter, meeting on Wednesdays. So what we did, and it's pretty big, like I myself Lysoled, like a whole small auditorium today, which is fine. Obviously not complaining at all because we're super blessed. So we did like smaller groups, because it's a lot more manageable. We took all of our high school guys into the small auditorium, which is where we normally have youth. And we did like middle school. And anyway, we just spread out because we had the luxury of having our entire property. So we tried, but really it was for the optics of people who are watching online. We're like, hey, we're going to do small groups, but we're going to stay 6 feet apart. But it ended up going pretty well just because of the simple fact we had the space. Like we talked about going outside, doing whatever you got to do. I think that'd be a good idea if the weather's nice, is just to go outside and spread out. But
it's good.
Baron,
What about
as well?
Oh, sorry, go for it, Baron.
Sorry, say that again, Bryce. You cut out on me.
Yeah, so you guys had small groups as well?
Yeah, we did small groups on Sunday. So our format is a Sunday morning small group, and then we all go to service afterwards. And then Wednesday we do a big student service. And organically, our number was great. We've been blessed with a great space. We have a lot of room. We spread tables out very well, even when we're not even in COVID-19, just because we want people to have room to do small groups. So we really just take over the area we're in and spread out. But what's kind of cool is like it kind of organically happened. Like groups were just a little bit smaller, which when you're gathered around an 8-foot table, you were able to spread out a little bit. And the social distancing kind of just took care of itself, which, I mean, we kind of got lucky by it because we didn't put as many things in place to kind of prepare for it. But what you see and what I see with a lot of parents is if they're concerned with their kid, they're just going to keep their kid back. And that's okay, because context is everything. We're talking about Yukon and Mustang where, the population density is a lot lower and there's a lot more freedom on our end. But like we said, there's going to be people in churches that have high population density that their city's still shut down. And so a lot of the decisions I make, I kind of just put on the parents of like, hey, if you're ready, the doors are open. We're opening doors because that's the direction our community is going in. And it just kind of, like we've all been saying, you got to trust the parents, do our end to make things right, and then follow the leadership of your church and the government. And
that's good.
It kind of just took care of itself.
That's cool.
Yeah. So Riley and Ryan, I know you guys got to head out here.
Might get for a few more minutes.
Okay. So let's talk about this. Did you guys pre-service, post-service, or even during the service, did you guys require your leaders, volunteers to wear masks, gloves, hazmat suits? Would you got anything?
We probably were horrible. Like, we're probably not a good example. We were just like, we're pretty sure you're not going to die. If you're pretty sure you're not going to die, we're going to have service. I mean, no. So when we didn't do any of that. But again, I have the stuff right here from our governor, and it doesn't say that you have to do any of that stuff. And so if it doesn't say you have to, then we're not going to. And so I know I'm not being completely flippant. This is why I'm carrying this around with me with my Bible. I have this in Leviticus where all the other rules are. And so it's just like, they didn't say we had to. And so, the reason we didn't do small groups and all that stuff last night is we were just curious who was going to even show up.
Yeah.
Right.
We just were like, what leaders are going to be here? Riley.
That was the big issue. That was the big issue. Our leaders, we didn't know if they'd come, or we weren't requiring them to come because, like Ryan said, is we can make light of the situation, or we can not make light of the situation, but you can't tell other people what they believe or whatever. And so we didn't put the expectation on our leaders. You have to be here. It's our first night back. That was why we didn't do small groups, is because we didn't want the leaders to feel like they're abandoning their small group if they didn't show up.
So we didn't have any masks or any of that stuff. Now on Sundays we are. I don't know why we are on Sundays and why we're not on Wednesdays, but
it's so funny because we're doing the exact same thing. So all of our greeters, all of the people who are ushering people to like seats, whatever, on Sunday mornings are wearing masks.
Yeah.
The very first Wednesday we started, not one leader wore masks. What I told them, it's just funny. I don't know. It's like almost a double thing. That was one thing that our leaders were worried about. So I have a lot. It's about half and half. College age leaders to like mom age, parent age leaders, like Ryan age leaders. And I'm just kidding. No, but what we told them is if there is a moment, because this is another thing too, and maybe this is a conversation we can have, because I'm curious to see what you guys did for response. But what we talked about was if there's a moment where a student comes up, because if we're being real, a lot of the teenagers are blowing this season off thinking that it's bigger than it is. However, there are still some real big issues that our students are facing. Mm-hmm. I had a small group leader, one of our adult leaders, talk about like, hey, I know you guys need to talk about COVID and the virus and stuff, but like, I'm still talking to my friend who's depressed. I'm still talking, thoughts of suicide and all these things. So it's like we talked about if they need prayer, we don't want to deny somebody of that, but what it looks like is a little bit different. We obviously didn't call everybody to the front for call and response, but what I told my leaders was, if somebody comes up to you for prayer, have a mask with you, because mainly for the optics, it's for them, it's for the student at that point, even though the student don't want it. If by whatever chance a parent is seeing on our YouTube live that an adult is praying for a teenager and they're not wearing a mask, I just wanted to be as protective as we can. But greeters, ushers, no, I mean, we didn't have ushers, but nobody else wore masks, and except for 2 students who were homeschooled that came last night, which we love homeschool students anyway. So, but nobody else wore masks. And I was curious too. It's like we do it on Sunday, but we don't on Wednesday. So I don't know. It is what it is.
I watched the news today, and there was a doctor that was saying that soon I don't know how to say this, like the deaths that are a byproduct of sheltering at home are soon going to be as high or higher than the deaths from coronavirus, meaning alcoholism, people who are not getting cancer screenings because they're staying home, people who are having, my son the other day had to go to the doctor, not because of any of this stuff. It was real simple, but like there was a lady there who the doctor was telling us about a kid who almost died because of his appendix rupture because his mom didn't want to take him to the hospital because she was scared. And like, I have a friend who works at Mercy Hospital, and they had like one person last week in there for coronavirus. Another friend at OU Medical Center who had like one person. And so I say all that to say, the kids are still dealing with their same things.
Right.
Yeah. And they're opening up. Our kids are starting to drive around. And so I'm trying to approach this from the standpoint of, I'm not just going to stand here and talk about coronavirus all the time, because these teenagers are still facing real world temptations, real world stuff. And I'm just not, Robbie said the other day, man, Jesus was ministering to the lepers. He was ministering to people who were, and so again, I'm not trying to be super spiritual, but at the same time, it's just, there is still real world stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
I think we cannot lose sight of that. Like, I don't think the teenagers are just sitting around thinking about coronavirus all the time, and so, so I don't know if any of that makes sense or not, but that's kind of the approach that we've decided to take, is we're going to do everything we can, follow the rules, but also we're going to get on with life. No shame, because people have we have kids who have diabetes, or kids who have a pre-existing condition, or different things like that. And so we understand, stay home and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So Abdiel, you guys did do masks, right?
Yeah. So all of our staff and leaders had masks on, but it's kind of what we're requiring of all staff and leaders on Sunday mornings. And so we were just kind of, doing the same thing that we were mandating on Sunday mornings with our youth leaders, and really, it was the direction of our leadership. They wanted us to kind of take that step. I think we were probably a little more aggressive than, with some of the restrictions and things like that. Because that's what our leadership, wanted to do. That's why, we had that the actual chairs actually distanced, and our leaders wearing masks and those sorts of things. But the leaders responded well. I mean, we even told them, hey, if you don't have a mask, we'll get you one. And but we said, if you're a leader and you show up, we need you to be wearing a mask. So
I think part of that for us is on Sundays we have 60, 70, 80-year-olds showing up to church.
Mm-hmm.
I know you can get into the whole thing, but then you can get sick and take it home and everything. But I think so part of it too is, I think a lot of it too is you don't want people to perceive that you're not taking it seriously. And so, but when it comes to teenagers, they're like, they see their friend and they run over and jump on them,
Yeah.
And so,
I think it really is about the perception. Really, I mean, that's what I preached to our leaders yesterday. It's like, hey guys, like, I know that a lot of this stuff may seem a little bit too strong, but man, you don't know, the skeptical parent that may be dropping their kid off, and they walk in and, like Bryce was saying, like, they see that, we're not taking it seriously, or whatever. And then they take their kid home, or they don't let them come until July or August, or they go and they tell their friend who also has a student that we're not taking it seriously. And so that was really the big deal with us. And that's what our leadership preached, to us, and said, hey, we just want you guys to take, just as far measures as possible to avoid any just bad perception.
Yeah, that's good.
Baron, what about you guys? Did you guys do any masks or anything?
We did not. Our church, when we opened up, we did masks for all our Sunday mornings. So our ushers and greeters all had masks when people arrived. Now we're more in the phase 2, but I think the one thing that we're learned through it is communication is key. Perception is everything. So over communicate everything. If there's anything you can do right now in this season, is to communicate, because where would we want to be someone that we would say something that would offend a parent, so when they eventually do feel comfortable, they don't bring their kid back? Like, I never want to say something during this season where I'm lighthearted about a serious issue that could affect a kid with an autoimmune system that may not feel comfortable ever coming back to our church. So communication is key, and with that, it's not just saying, hey, here's our plan. It's a communication of, hey, we understand that we're all in different contexts and we're all in different situations, but we accept, no matter the decision you make, that we're on board with that. So if you want to wear a mask, we welcome you. We don't treat you differently. We hope that you wear it if you need to wear it, and if you would like some of us to do it, we'll work alongside of you. But communication is key, working with your people and valuing them no matter the decision they make. If they say, hey, we're not going to come back for a while, that's great. I love what Bryce did. Some of the things that Bryce is doing to include some people that aren't there. I mean, that's great. There's some great things to lean into that, of like, we're going to take care of our sheep that are in our building, but also outside of our building. So Bryce, man, great ideas there. But communicate. If I could say anything, communicate.
Yeah. Bryce, did you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I did, because I know Ryan and Riley may have to jump off here. I'm just curious, and not just for them, but wanted to give them a chance to answer. Did you have any more strategy than normal going into what you were going to do for like the response time or altar? I mean, obviously, listen, we're Pentecostal, okay, unapologetically. A lot of us are on this call, but no, I mean, just what response looks like, and we don't have to have a big emotional response every single week, obviously. But my thought was like, man, we can't do what we normally do where leaders are lined up in the back, whatever. What did you guys do for response, if you don't mind me asking?
We honored our seniors, so we did our senior night, and so it was a different feel anyway. And so again, for us, getting into phase 3, you're supposed to be socially distanced, and so I'm probably the wrong person to ask this, because I feel like we've all been to Walmart and Lowe's. I mean, and so we're doing the best we can. We're probably, we're not going to have the same. I mean, we probably won't have the same type of altar call that we would normally have, but we'll keep those things in mind. But last night was one of those nights that we didn't really have to think through that, because it was just a different service. It lended itself to a different thing. But so again, I go into this, I look at this, and it's like,
right. I think you need to like laminate that thing and make you just hold it up.
I do think a lot of this is perception. And so you're talking about communicating when we have our, when we're sending out our stuff to our leaders, when we're sending out our stuff to our parents, when we're on our Facebook parents page, letting them know. I want them to know, like, I'm not just like, this will be okay. Like, we're going by the guidelines. We have nurses and doctors as leaders, and they're, and so, and it just varies. It varies. If I'm a youth pastor in New York City, it would look a lot different, than it does here. The reality of it is there's been like 15 people in Mustang or 12 people in Mustang who've gotten sick by this, and so again, does that mean it's not serious? Absolutely not. But am I going to not pray with a kid because 12 people got, because again, last night there's a girl, I'm driving to Wendy's, and one of our girls, because that's what you do after church is you go to Wendy's, and there's a girl that gets in a car wreck, and we're getting out checking on her and making sure she's okay. And that moment, I'm not going to be like, man, you're in a car wreck. 3 months ago, I would have prayed for you, and now I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's right or wrong. It's just, for me, one of my girls was in a car wreck, or
yeah.
So, again, if I'm going to trust them, if they're sick, if they're whatever, then we're gonna be okay with it. I think something else is you talk to doctors, and teenagers seem to be pretty resilient from this, and so that kind of I don't know. You just have to search for the truth. You search for what doctors are saying. I have to trust my leaders. I have to trust my governor. I have to trust the people around us. And so that's a really long answer to that. But last night, so like next week is our welcome summer party. And so, we'll, probably do a little bit more socially distant stuff. But our thing is, if the parents are there, they're pretty cool with it. And then, so we're going, with that. So I don't know, Bryce, what are your thoughts? Are you guys changing up the way that you do the end of service, or?
Yeah, and I was just kind of curious if anybody, because again, it doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out thing, but what we've done the past 2 weeks, because we do the thing where like salvations, but then at the end, because like you've talked about earlier, I mean, I think students are in need of normal like spiritually development conversations aside from the virus, because they're still dealing with real problems.
Sure.
So with that in mind, we just said for response, like, hey, here's what we're going to do, and I asked the entire worship team to stay. Everybody stood up. So we're going to spread out, and we're just going to have a time of worship. And rather than coming to somebody to have them lay hands on you, which again, I don't know where you land on that spectrum, everybody, but rather than doing that, because it's been, a little bit frowned upon, I want you to get alone with God, create some space, and just, be honest with him and see, because I think this too is when we look back on this, I really truly feel like a lot of our students are going to look at this season as kind of just a wasted season that they got through, and what we're trying to do, not to be like the cliche thing, but we're trying to challenge them to grow through this and not just go through it, so that they can be on the other side of this one day thinking like, man, I never would have had that much of an opportunity to go after God by myself. Right. And it's all pointing to that regard. And I don't know. I didn't love the response last night because you still have some students who may not be to that spiritual maturity level to where they can sit and worship. And it wasn't 30 minutes, but it was, a worship song about 8 minutes or so. And I don't know. I love, there's no substitute to me sometimes for just laying hands on people and praying with them one-on-one. So I was curious about what you guys said.
I think, Bryce, it just goes back to personal responsibility. Yet these teenagers, if they feel led, they want to respond to the altar, if they come to a leader to be prayed for, then that's fine. That's their decision. That's their personal responsibility they're taking on themselves. I just think we need to provide avenues where anyone can respond according to their comfort level. So if you want to come up for prayer, you can do that. If you want to pray in your seat and just raise your hand and we can pray for you from over here, you can do that. I just think you provide different levels for different people's comfortability, and they can choose to participate based on their own personal responsibility for their life.
Yeah.
And I kind of liken this to, Paul says to me, he says, if you don't eat meat, if that's going to offend somebody, I'm kind of likening that to this. Our pediatrician told us they were sending kids to Texas from Oklahoma for RSV this year because the hospitals were so full, and we never even heard about it. And so I say all that to say, to me, I'm more worried about, I don't want to offend somebody. I don't want to upset somebody. But, man, I'm sure there's been a lot of sickness passed around before in our youth services. We're going to go to camp this year. Now, how in the world are you going to socially distance at youth camp? I mean, I'm just, you know what I'm saying? Stay 6 feet away when you're playing, Amazon Woman or all the games that we're playing, how we're going to do that. And so, again, that just comes back to, I'm doing everything I can to not offend anybody, to not upset anybody, and to show that. And I think what has comforted our parents the most is for us to simply say, it's okay. They just I think in this time, people want to be told what to do sometimes. I think they want to hear from their leader, and they want to hear their leader say, it's okay if you stay home. Yeah. It's okay if you don't feel comfortable doing that. And it's okay to be here. And it's okay to, I even think it's okay to tell people it's okay to be normal. Wash your hands, don't sneeze on me, and be respectful. Things we probably should have been doing beforehand. But they just want permission to be okay.
It's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, Peter asked, what are you guys doing to make sure you're communicating to parents that their kids are going to be safe?
If you weren't communicating to parents before this, then you weren't doing a great job as a youth pastor to begin with. I mean, that's just my opinion. And so, because parents are the real youth pastors, we're a supplement. And so, what I think coronavirus does is it speeds up companies that are dying right now, or companies that were probably going to die no matter what. Coronavirus has just sped this up. All right. And so does that make sense? And so you need to have a good plan, and whatever you plan to communicate right now to the coronavirus, now to keep that going after coronavirus, because you need to be communicating with parents no matter what. So we Facebook Live, our parent newsletter, all that kind of stuff. I don't know what you guys do.
Yeah, we have a big Facebook group for our church. We have our Facebook page for our church, and then we have what's called the LFA family Facebook, where got several hundred families represented on that group. And so we did a big post on there to communicate kind of what we were doing. We made the calls, those types of things. When we were announcing we were coming back, we even at the last minute, we even did an Instagram post and shared it to our main church page and our main church Facebook page that said what to expect when you come to youth tonight. And it, kind of had all the, expect our leaders to kindly but firmly, enforce distancing, to expect our leader to be wearing masks, that type of thing. Expect our chairs to be, so we try to get a lot of word info out, like that on social media and things like that. We don't really have a newsletter yet, which is something that we should probably do. In fact, it's something I do want to work on. I've only been here a couple months, but I think that's a great idea to do a monthly newsletter, like Ryan was saying, just to continually reaffirm that it is a safe place. Beyond just the coronavirus, COVID stuff. Those are all great ideas. But that's kind of what we did.
So Baron, what about you guys? What were some things you guys did to communicate to parents?
Yeah. So we, like was mentioned earlier, communication from the very beginning, even before COVID-19, is very crucial. We've done a lot of communicating with them, and we've done it very grassroots. I mean, we've just been picking up the phone and calling them, because that's been our motto through COVID-19 is relationships. And you can make relationships through videos and screen time, but sometimes you just got to have a conversation. And so as we've kind of looked at our whole summer, we've kind of looped parents in the whole time. We've made the decision not to go to camp this year. Our camp was supposed to be set up on June 14th. So it was 2 weeks away. 3-4 weeks away. And to be honest, our response from parents were, I don't know if we feel comfortable. We got that response through communication. And so as we're making these phone calls, any event we do, you can expect 2 or 3 phone calls from myself to you and your student saying, hey, I want you to be a part of this. I don't want you to miss that. I want you to go after it. So that's kind of what we've been doing this whole time we haven't missed a day in the office. Our phones die at 12 o'clock. I come home exhausted and not really wanting to talk to my wife because I've talked to 20,000 other people during the day. But that's what it's taken for us. And that's just the approach that we are committed to relationships. And so we've done the mass video, we've done the mass texting, but sometimes they just need that phone call from their pastor saying, hey, it's going to be okay. Here's what we're doing. If you're not going to come, that's okay too. And so just that grassroots approach.
I think to kind of piggyback off of I just wanted to piggyback on No, I think I just kind of wanted to point out I think one of the scariest things, and this is kind of going off of what Barron was saying with connection and that being key, which I 100% agree with. That's one of the scariest things I think coming out of this season is you're learning like who or what students are actually connected to your ministry. And like what families are actually connected, to your ministry. And I think that's probably the most challenging thing for me, at least, especially given my unique situation. But just, we should have a better idea as to who is actually connected to our youth ministry, the families that are, and I think, man, we ought to have like a plan, a game plan coming out of this. Like, okay, like how are we going to improve that? Like, how are we going to, we may have, I don't know, this many kids show up, but I just realized that maybe 30% of those kids are actually really connected to what we're doing. So I think for me, man, I think you've got it on the money. I think it's all about connection. And I think that's what this season has really shown the most out of anything. And that's the most challenging thing for me, at least.
If I could say something, I can almost get on a soapbox on this, so stop me. But I'm telling you, the grassroots is where it's at. We have a list of over 480 students that we have to call, but I'm committed to making that call. And if it's a lot, and if it becomes too much, in your leadership set up programs that small group leaders are making those exact same phone calls. Duplicate people that can make phone calls. Don't think because your ministry is so big that you can't call through that list. Pastors, you are responsible for shepherding your people, no matter the size, if it's small or big. So pick up the phone. Like I will die on that hill. If you get after your people, take care of them.
I love that. Ryan, what were we going to say?
I was just curious if there's anything that you guys started doing because of the COVID thing that you're going to continue doing after.
It's a great question. Yes, for us, what we did is very, very much echoing what these guys are talking about with the grassroots. We had a decent parent communication system. I say one of the churches, only because I'm not super familiar with other churches represented, but the Bridge does a really good job of parent communication. So we've done the newsletter. We do a Remind app. That's another thing, just a resource. Hopefully every youth pastor knows about the text Remind. It's just the quickest thing you can do, and we always encourage parents to do that. But then also what we did is we made a decision at the very beginning of this that if a student, we're going to make Wednesday nights still youth night, right? So we wanted to establish some sort of normalcy to the craziness that was taking place with everything being stripped away from them. So whatever that looks like, we're going to have youth at 7:00 on Wednesday. So our goal was early on, we're going to make it our goal to where if somebody isn't coming to youth, either DS Live or in person now, it's because they don't want to. It's not because they didn't know about it. So what we did is we just kind of set up a very much grassroots, very simple. All of our small group leaders got divvied up lists from us of who to contact weekly. Text them, very personal, and call them and say, like, also, here's the information, but then also just know that if you need anything, we're here. We want to pastor you. We were in this together type thing. Just because we're spiritually or just because we're physically isolated doesn't mean we're not spiritually connected, you know? So that's something that I really, to be honest, and this is me being vulnerable here, it was probably a weakness of our ministry, because we realized very quickly who wasn't, you know, who we thought was core of our youth ministry, who really wasn't. I'm talking about students and leaders at this point.
Yeah.
So what works now is going forward. I love the idea of like literally every Wednesday, if they're not coming to youth, it's because they don't want to come, or it's because they have a huge thing. It's not because they didn't think about it or they forgot about it. But we wanted to basically make the information and make what we were doing so in the forefront that they had to ignore it to not come. So that was our goal, and that's what we're going to do from now. And, you know, we've always tried to do a big Instagram presence. We've always tried to do social media, but this was more of a personal touch, and that's what we'll definitely do. So to answer your question, Ryan, yeah, long story short is we equipped our leaders to touch base, kind of what Barron did with every single student who has attended our youth ministry over the past 6 months. They were contacted, and they're still being contacted through this.
One thing we added, I'll answer this super short. Zoom, some of us loved Zoom. Some of us got tired of Zoom. One of the greatest things I realized with Zoom is you can pull off leader meetings very quick and efficient in that way. Now, what you do lose is you do lose your opportunity for fellowship and relationships and things like that. But when you take into account some people live 10, 15 minutes away and you need to do a student leadership meeting, that's 30 minutes in the car. You're taking 30 minutes of their time away from their family.
Yeah.
So what I learned is we can jump on Zoom. I can go over things. I can bring in people that I would never be able to fly in. I got friends all over the country that would love to speak in, and I would love to have them speak into our ministry. And I can have them sitting behind a screen over in Nashville and being a part of what's going on here. So one thing we're going to keep doing periodically, not all the time, because relationships are important, that fellowship's important. We're going to do some leader meetings over Zoom calls and try to give families back some of their time.
Good. So let's go through. Bryce, you're going to continue live streaming?
Yeah, to our best bet. We've got to figure it out logistically, but yes, until every restriction is off, probably at least until phase 3, we'll do every Wednesday live stream. Yeah.
Abdiel, what do you guys think about live stream continuing?
Same for us, like Bryce. I mean, up until everything is, you know, as back to normal as, you know, whatever that looks like, we'll probably still be streaming for sure, doing just even Instagram live just on a tripod on a phone, you know, kind of thing, just did something, but we will be streaming still.
Ryan, Riley at the bridge.
Really with COVID, it probably made us identify some holes, probably you call it like in our social media game or something. And so really we're not live streaming our service, but we really amped it up. Our thing was this is we didn't want to start a bunch of stuff through the quarantine situation that wasn't sustainable long term. And so we put ourselves on a really good schedule about every other day, doing stuff on our social media stuff that we could sustain even after we started meeting together. So we'll continue to do that to get engagement through our social media, because the biggest thing I learned where we were missing out on social media wasn't necessarily promoting our stuff, but it was that social media gives everybody an equal voice. I was surprised how many students engaged in our social media stuff, our Tuesday night games, our Wednesday night service, that I never heard say a word through youth service. And these same kids, I'm walking back to the back room before service, and these kids that I never heard them say a word in person, that are playing Super Smash Brothers on the Switch, that I still didn't hear a word last night, were blowing up the chat the whole time through our Instagram live service. And so really, like, I think that's the value the social media is going to add to our ministry, is it's giving every one of our kids an equal voice into the youth ministry. They might not be comfortable talking on Wednesday nights to me as one of the youth pastors here, but on through social media they certainly were, or through DMs, or through the comment on the live stuff. And so I think that was an added value to our youth ministry, and why me and Ryan we both talked about this, why we will continue to do some very similar things to what we're doing during quarantine stuff when we didn't have service, is because it is giving everyone that equal voice into the youth ministry.
Barron, what about you guys? Are you doing any live stream on your services?
Yeah, so that's actually something one of our leaders had been doing for months before COVID-19. He had that set up for us. It was pretty comical. I'm pretty sure the only one that watched it was my grandmother in Nashville. And we actually talked after last night's service. She's like, wow, look, it looks like you're really growing your ministry. More people are watching online. I was like, well, Grandma, you see the room. It looks it's been growing for a little bit, but yes, the online's changed. But yeah, we're just going to keep doing that. We didn't really have to add anything for it. We're not on all the platforms, but we're on one constant one, and we'll probably just stay right there.
Okay. So for the most part, you guys will try to at least, as the live and the video intersect, to kind of keep it going as the in person kind of picks up more. Is that what I'm hearing here? So that's good. Riley, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just have a question because I know, like, Bryce is close to us. I'm friends with Abiel, so I kind of know. Baron, it's nice to meet you today. But so, Bryce, you guys chose to stream on YouTube, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So, Abiel, you guys chose to do Instagram Live, correct? Mm-hmm. So why? So, Bryce, I'm curious because this is some are doing YouTube, some are doing Instagram Live, some are doing Facebook. A lot of through services like one we're on now, you can do Facebook and YouTube at the same time. It's very difficult to pull off, a cross-platform between Instagram and YouTube or Instagram and Facebook, as far as if you want to keep quality. Like, I did all that research. I'm curious. So, Bryce, why did you choose to do YouTube primarily? And then, Abiel, why did you choose to do Instagram? I can tell you why we chose to do something, but I'm just curious, mainly the YouTube thing. Bryce, what do you get?
Honestly, it was a trial and error type thing, but to me, it was through a lot of conversations that I had. First of all, students, I mean, obviously, they're much more technologically advanced than we are. So they're going to figure out, even if they're not on our YouTube. YouTube was something that we had already. And when the COVID thing happened, we had already had a YouTube channel set up, but it was pretty grim, pretty grim, to be honest. Like, we didn't do a whole lot of stuff on there. We didn't promote a whole lot of stuff on there. But once we did, we realized, like, hey, we want to, we're going to be bored all day, every day. And of course, this was 6-7 weeks ago, because now we're not doing as much, but we wanted to put games on there. We wanted to put other things on there. So we thought, YouTube Live would be a lot more of a service feel. Instagram was used for videos for updates, pictures from services, occasional information thing. Yeah. But to me, I was just like, I'd like it to feel a little bit different than Instagram. Of course, they're on both platforms, but we had already had a decent amount of subscriptions on our YouTube channel before this. So it just kind of worked. It made more sense to me in my head. And we had the luxury, and not every church has this, but we had the luxury of using all our Sunday morning resources for our Wednesday night service. So that didn't have that, we would definitely try to do Instagram Live. But since we had that available, we had 3 or 4 cameras to switch it back and forth from. And like I said, our Sunday morning auditorium. So if we didn't have that, we'll probably just do Instagram. But yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, we would have preferred to do YouTube. I mean, this pretty much the same thing, that Bryce was doing. But we literally just launched our YouTube channel. So we don't have a ton of traction on it yet. I mean, we launched it just a few weeks ago. So we don't have a ton of traction, not that many subscribers yet. Most of, our biggest platform is Instagram. I mean, that's really why. And we don't have the setup in our youth auditorium to be able to, pull off, kind of what Bryce was talking about, where it actually feels like you're, in service and you can do kind of the multiple, camera shots and things like that, but honestly, we would have preferred to do, if we had the option, we would have done YouTube. And I don't know, probably still has, the iPhone set up, somewhere in a corner or something, just for whatever reason, but what we would have probably preferred to do YouTube. I think that's a really big platform for kids, especially the younger kids. I think that's something that we don't realize. Like, a lot of our 12, 13, even 14-year-olds maybe aren't on Instagram, but, because their parents or whatever don't let them have an account, but they'll let them get on YouTube, you know what I mean? And so, that's a way where our younger kids who aren't there or haven't been there, or since we haven't been able to meet, they can get on YouTube even if they don't have, a social media, account. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
It's great. Riley, what about you guys? What you guys chose?
Oh, yeah, we chose Instagram, and mainly, his decision Ryan and I made. Just that's what we have already. That was our following existed on, we have no students on Facebook, so obviously we didn't really want to do Facebook, and we didn't have a following on YouTube, and so it definitely wasn't the time to launch something new, and so that's why we chose Instagram. I was just curious why mainly Bryce chose to do YouTube. So
yeah.
So let's talk about this. What are you guys doing to communicate that tension to your leaders as well as to your students? We want you here. Please come. But also, if you don't feel comfortable or it's not time yet, stay home. What are you guys doing to communicate that?
I mean, honestly, we're not really doing, much with that. I think we're just trying to work really hard at communicating how excited we are to be back way more. I mean, it's really unbalanced, to be honest with you. We're trying to communicate more that we're really excited to be back live in person more so than we are. I mean, honestly, even affirming the leaders that maybe weren't comfortable with coming back really only came out of my mouth one time in a Zoom meeting. I just said, hey guys, we understand if you're not comfortable, no pressure really. But we are gonna roll as if, we're kind of, we're back live. We're back live.
I would say it's the same way. It's the same way restaurants are communicating to their people, or anyone's communicating to their people. They're just saying, hey, we're open. You can come if you want. And they're not even saying you can come if you want. I think it's just understood under people's personal responsibility that they can choose to come if they want to, and there's no pressure from us. Mainly to our leaders, those are the only people we really communicated to. Hey, you guys don't have to come. We'd like to get you guys back by this date. We had a vision for that. But really to students, we didn't communicate anything as far as, hey, come if you want. We just said we're open. And I think it's understood that they can come if they want.
You know, one thing we're doing is, we're stretching ourselves pretty through this season, but it's because we want to get our foundation back. We want our foundation built back in the summer so we can create momentum going into August so we can really take off when the school year starts. So to be honest, we're stretching ourselves really thin right now. We're giving out a lot of options to be a part of our student ministry. You got your Sunday morning small groups, but we've also rolled out Tuesday night junior high school hangouts, which is just us outside, not inside. You're not sharing anything, but it's just a Tuesday night hangout. And then if you feel more comfortable, on Wednesday, we've got a worship service, a normal Wednesday night service. If you're comfortable with being inside, come to that. But then on Thursday, we're doing a high school night. So like tonight, I'm going to jump off here and we're going to do a high school hang outside. So if you're not comfortable being around the full crowd, we've got a smaller section on Tuesday or Thursday that fits your age graphic that you can still be a part of our student ministry in an outdoor setting. Now, like we've talked about before, like some things you can't keep doing that over and over and over again. But we know how crucial it is for a foundation to be rebuilt here and to build it fast. So we're giving options. So that's our plan moving forward, is giving them options.
Yeah. All right. So let's do this real quick. For those that have not opened up yet, let's go around the circle here and give some tips, some thoughts. What would be for those that have not opened up yet? Let's go, Bryce. Why don't you just go ahead and go first here? What would you say to them? Some tips, suggestions. What would you say to them?
Yeah, so I would say this too, and it's along the lines. I love the idea of giving them options as much as you can within reason, because some schedules are a little harder than others. But my thought too is my situation, and again, this is mainly the demographic of teenagers. So I think this is mainly just for youth pastors reopening. But what I've had to do is find myself not reminding our students that there's a real virus, but reminding, because they're to me, okay, not to get too dramatic, but there is not in teenagers' minds right now, there is not a name attached to this virus. It's just, unless it's like Bill Gates or whatever. I'm just kidding. Or like, some conspiracy thing. But my point in saying that is this is some far off, kind of blown out of proportion thing. So my advice to anybody who's opening up is to say like, hey, listen, there's a reason why we can't have service normal, right? There's a reason why we can't do exactly what we did 7 or 8 weeks ago. It's because there is an actual virus here. Like I've told stories of like a friend of mine from SAGU, who was more of an acquaintance really, passed away. He was 29 years old, passed away, and it said that it was COVID related. So he had other issues medically as well. But so I try to, like, not to scare them, not to say like, oh, do that. But I've had to even talk to some of my leaders who are younger on the YouTube chat that's like, no, we ain't scared of no virus. We're young. We can't do this. And you guys know this too. And it's not to be insensitive, and it's not to swing one way on the pendulum. But my advice to anybody is to remind them that, like, hey, here's why we can't have service as normal. It's because there is an actual virus, and it's not scary for you. But when was the last time you checked on your grandma? When was the last time you checked on somebody who's actually at risk here? We need to be sensitive to the others, because our biggest challenge, and again, this is only my context, and maybe it'll help somebody, hopefully it will, is we've had people who have really reprimanded the side of the fence that is, I'm going to wear masks and do exactly what the governor says and restricted. The other people on the other side of that have said, you're living in fear. You're not living by faith. How dare you? This is America. Jesus wouldn't wear masks. Jesus, and it's one of those things that I have a conviction about that, because you're never ever going to be able to bring somebody to a God of love if you're not willing to first, put
That's
down
good.
differences and show some compassion.
That's good.
Even if you disagree with them. And so I would just say, if wherever your students land on the spectrum of way too early to open up, or come on, I'm bored out of my mind, let's open up, remind them of the dangers either way. And I don't mean to say, I hope you hear the heart behind that, not like a cautionary, scare your kids. But at the same time, I think teenagers are so quick to forget that this is anything more than just robbing them of their graduation and prom.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's great. Abiel?
I mean, to be honest, I don't have a ton of insight really. And I want to take, Baron's thunder, but I think communication is huge. And communicate everything, communicate what they can expect when they come to youth. Hey, it's not going to be the same. There are going to be things that look differently. And that's okay. So embrace the things that are different. And I would just say, man, don't put a lot of pressure on it. Don't feel like you need to, have a great service, but don't feel the need that it needs to be, your biggest outreach of the year is that doesn't need to be the case. Just open back up, do it well, keep it simple so that you can enjoy the win. That's really, enjoy the win of being back, keep it simple, and do it well, but, just don't put a lot of pressure on it, man. I think a lot of us are saying the same things. Kids, most kids just want to be around people again. And so lean into that, keep it simple. And I felt satisfied last night, and it was super simple. I mean, we didn't do anything crazy, and I walked away so satisfied.
That's a good word.
So that's all
great.
I have.
Riley?
Yeah. Numbers can't matter right now. That's all I was going to say earlier.
Yeah.
Celebrate what you have. Celebrate what you have.
Yeah, I would totally agree with what Abiel said. I keep pointing off to this way because they're this way on my screen, but they're actually this way. I agree with Abiel. Take the pressure off you. Ryan said last night before, because I was kind of running around, because you take 2 months off and you're like, 30 minutes for it's 10 minutes for service. You're like, is the right countdown in Pro Presenter? And you just run back there to do it. Ryan said last night, he said, Riley, chill. He goes, as long as no kids die tonight, then it was successful. Obviously, as long as, we only one. He said, as long as no kids get hurt tonight, because they just, because they're so sick of being cooped up, they go crazy. And so Ryan, as my boss, took the pressure off me, because he was like, chill, So I would say that to you guys, take the pressure off yourself. Just like Abiel said, these kids, they've just been cooped up. They just want to be, together with their tribe, doing life together. I told Ryan I'd fit in all the buzzwords, so I'm doing it right now, but take the pressure off yourself, and just let your kids do their thing, and they just want to be together. So,
Ryan?
There was a girl that was there last night, and the last time I talked to her dad, he said that she had not been out of the house in over 50 days. And I was shocked to see her last night. If you stay somewhere long enough and you're consistent long enough with the little things, then people will trust you with their kids in the big things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, for me, that's what's been fun about staying somewhere long enough, is people know that I'm going to protect their kids, and they know that I am going to do what I say, and they know that I'm not going to do anything stupid. I'm going to love their kids like I love my own kids. And so I think people just trust that. And so I think you find out in moments of crisis if people trust you as a leader or not. And so so whatever comes up next, I think the biggest thing you can have is trust. And the biggest thing you can have is respect from your parents. And so do whatever it takes to keep that communication open. You can't trust someone you don't communicate with. And let them know they can trust you. And man, there's nothing more that a parent will trust. There's nothing greater for them not a greater way for them to show trust than them, allowing you to speak into their kids' lives. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned, is even the parents go, man, I'm not sure, or whatever, they're going to trust you. And so, I don't know, that's probably a bigger spectrum, but just no matter where you're at, man, if as a youth pastor, build trust with the parents. Yeah. And the longer you stay somewhere, the more trust that you're going to have.
Yeah, I think for me, It's crazy. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer on what you're to do. I don't think you could take anything we said today and just directly apply it to your context, because every context is different. I think you really have to own that you are the pastor of the students. God has placed you there in a leadership role to make decisions. That was not by an accident. That was not by chance, but you've been ordained by God to lead your people. So with that, what do? You lean into the people that are around you. You lean into your leadership. You lean into maybe some core volunteers, and you do what's best for your students. You can take and pick and choose things that each ministry is doing, but don't just see something that maybe Bryce is doing over there and think, man, that sounds awesome. I can do it here, because what Bryce is doing is awesome. But what Bryce has figured out is what works for his students. And so as the pastor, as you're doing life with your students, figure out what works for them and make the decision. Spend some time praying about it. That's the root of it all. Hit your knees, humbly fall before God. Say, God, what do you want me to do in this season? Who do you want me to lean to for my advice and wisdom? Lead your people. And there's not a right or wrong answer. Communicate well, respect others' wishes, honor and celebrate what you have. If you've got 10 students that come that first night, celebrate that, because God is doing something in their life. If you've got 100, praise God. If it's a new record, you got to jump on the Zoom next time and tell us what you're doing. But celebrate what you have, because God is at work. So lean in, trust Him, trust people around you. And you're the pastor. Lead your people.
That's good.
Oh, Ryan, I think you're muted.
Okay, so one last question here. We'll end with this one. What are you guys thinking about? Have you began to think about planning for if schools cancel? Does that affect your student ministries? What are you thinking about if the schools begin to shut down and close? Does that affect what you guys do? Have you thought about that?
I think and I don't want to speak for Ryan, but I think we'll probably just continue to operate under any guidelines the governor puts out for the state of Oklahoma. So if school's canceled, and according to the guidelines that we work under, we're still allowed to meet. We're still going to meet. And like I said, I think parents are responsible enough to choose what is good for their kids to participate in and what they don't want their kids to participate in. If they want their kids to come participate in person, and then they can do that. I think we answered a lot of questions today over, well, what y'all do for this and social distance and masks? I think the kids who showed up automatically are probably buying into, they are cool with person-to-person interaction, and so I just don't think we totally can take away someone's personal responsibility to make a decision that's good for them and their family. And so, if schools choose to close, we'll probably just still operate under the guidelines that we have to operate under. Just like the schools choosing to make the best decision for them, we're going to make the best decision for our student ministry. So,
yeah, I think there's something you shared. Like, I think our Wednesday and small groups and programs like that, unless things were to ramp back up, I don't see us at Trinity taking any steps backwards. But when you think about if school's going to get closed, what do we need to think about? I got to replan and rethink about what outreach looks like, because the school is the key to outreach. Student pastors, be in your schools every single day. That is their mission field. You send your students out on a mission field, go join them on mission. So where I'm at is I may not need to rethink my programming. I got to rethink about how I reach and engage my students day in and day out. And so that just kind of is going to roll with the punches. We had some coaches up here having them in the other day for a video, and we talked with them, and they got stipulations on about how many people are going to be able to come in their weight room. Dang, that's going to be tough, because as much as I love these guys, they need their players and maybe not a pastor in there right now. So I got to get creative on what's it going to take to get back in these schools. Because there's going to be some maybe more stipulations coming out of this. And so that's something that I'm already thinking through and trying to figure out come August. If there's strict restrictions, how do I reach these students?
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't necessarily tackled the idea of the fall semester doing it, but what we're starting to navigate now is the challenge behind, because we are going to summer camp still. It got moved to July, But now these coaches and stuff are trying to hit the ground running with football, hit the ground running with all these sports. So we're like, well, now it's because students are craving that. You know, all the athletes that have been cooped up for the past 7 weeks, they're now like, oh, we get football back. So now it's navigating like, all right, camp may look a little different this year. You know, who knows at the end of the day, and who cares at the end of the day, because we just celebrate whoever's going because we still get to go. But at the end of the day, it's like there will be a moment where we kind of have to reinstill the priority of like church versus, you know, extracurricular things. And man, I think that's what if we allow it to, God can show us is the priority back on the church. And I'm not talking about youth group. I'm talking about the local church. Like I hope and pray, because I've heard people say this, and I'll just say this and kind of end it. But I've heard people say like maybe this will establish now that the online church is the new way to do church. You know, and to me that's just there's no substitute for. There's no substitute for the face-to-face corporate worship gathering. Obviously, it's biblical too, but I just hope and pray through all of this, even if school's way up in the air, that the church can still be consistent and steady and doing our best throughout it all. In the meantime, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
it's great. Abdiel, Ryan, any thoughts?
No, I mean honestly, we haven't put much thought into what it would look like if schools don't reopen, though. I mean, down here in Lawton, it doesn't look like that would be the case. You know, we're moving really quick through all the phases down here. So I don't know, but as far as thinking through that, man, we haven't. I think at this point, up to this point, we were just thinking week to week. Yeah, it's a little too early. So
on Say the Last Dance, they said the greatest thing about Michael Jordan was that he lived in the present.
Yeah, and
so I'm trying to do that right now. Not be like Michael Jordan, but to live in the present, because there's so many things right now that there's so many what ifs that, I mean, we would have never thought this would have came, you know, and up until this, I think we missed like one Wednesday for a tornado like 3 years ago, you know? And so, you know, I'm not even going to think about all that right now, because I don't know, that might be bad, but I'm just going to try to, you know, do the best I can for what I know right now.
No, I think that coming back to even what you guys have said, taking some of that pressure off of having all of it, like you don't have to have it all figured out yet, right? Like let's navigate coming back in. Let's navigate some summer camp, some summer activities. Let's navigate that, and we'll circle back in a month or two and start thinking about what's ahead. But yeah, I think Ryan, what you're saying is there's so many what ifs that at some point you got to just say, like, I know I'm going to focus on what I do know. I'm going to do what I do know really well and worry about the what ifs later.
Right before this, we had a tuberculosis scare in Mustang. So we're just like, dear Lord, can 2020? I mean, it's like.
You never thought you'd get TB and Corona in the same week, you know?
You survived this summer. At your age, Ryan, you're going to be doing great.
Man, why do you think I'm bald? I mean, it's coronavirus.
6 months ago, he had long, luscious hair, man.
These hornets trying to sting us, you know.
Yeah, what is what are the murder beetles or whatever it was?
Yeah.
Murder hornets.
Yeah.
Apparently, NASA just realized that there's a parallel universe. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I've seen like 5 articles already today.
I got
we're going on a mission trip now.
I got to yell. Marvel discovered there's parallel universes like 60 years ago. All right, so
that's true. Yeah.
Oh,
that's awesome.
All that matters is Chick-fil-A is open in Yukon. So
come on. Hey, that is something I forgot to mention earlier, real quick on like a thing when you were talking about what to do before and after, because you got to get a little creative. Our tradition has been to go, like it's mainly our core students, but after youth service is over, we'll all go to Chick-fil-A and hang out. And what we've done instead is we've gone through the drive-through and then gone to the Target parking lot and just kind of spread out. That's cool. And like we call it chicken and chairs, which is possibly the most cringy name ever, but I'm sure just love it.
I got to give a shout out to you, Bryce. You got some incredible students, because me and my wife have gone there after service on some Wednesdays, and some of them come up and say, hey, because I've seen them in school. Super polite, super incredible group of guys that you have going there. You're doing a great job, man.
We got some good ones. I appreciate that. Y'all have good ones too, man.
My students must be heathens, because when they get kicked out of Chick-fil-A, they always say they go to Trinity Baptist Church.
We welcome them all. Bring them all.
If you get calls, they're probably my kids. I'm sorry, man.
No worries.
That's awesome. Well, hey, thanks guys for your time. So appreciate it all. Great insights, great advice. youth pastors, as you guys are trying to figure out what to do next, when to open up, listen up to these guys. Are doing it great. So thanks, guys, so much for joining. We'll see you guys.
Ryan. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, thanks for putting this together, Ryan. For real, man.
Great.
Yeah,
that was good.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys.
Good to meet you, Abigail.
You too.
Take it easy.